What is up, word nerds? Hey, what's up, word nerds? And welcome to the Richter scale, where I am looking at a book that I've read and comparing it to where it would sit on my shelf. I have books all over the house, literally on every shelf, on every floor, stacks of them everywhere. And so it's really hard for me to position a book where would I like to position my book. So today I'm actually looking at where would I position this book that I just finished this morning called Recapture, the Rapture by Mr. James Wheel, otherwise known as Mr. Jamie Wheel. I actually had the good pleasure of listening to an interview with the author, uh, with someone who I'm familiar with and on Facebook. Uh, Someone who actually interviewed him, meaning that they actually had time together in private time and actually knew each other in real life. So rather than actually being interviewed by someone who, maybe the PR managers or the marketing departments got them together, this was actually a conversation between two buddies. And I felt like I was a little fly on the wall at the kitchen table in that party, part of that conversation, to know that this guy does not just uh, write the right, walk the walk, or talk the talk. He also walks the walk. He's actually like, this is what you see is what you get. And I actually read this book. It came to me 2 days ago, was delivered 2 days ago. I read it in, a couple mornings, woke up in the morning and did my thing, having my coffee, reading my book. And it was pretty transcendent. Like, I'm reading it going, this guy knows a thing or two. I'm also sitting and thinking, well, doesn't he just speak my language? And where are these people hiding that speak this language around the Gnostics and around, he's even got some politics in here. He understands what's going on around the world internationally. He gets it. He just gets it. The greatest thing is that he's getting it from a perspective of, like, he's calling it Recapture the Rapture, rethinking God, sex, and death in a world that's lost its mind. And ain't that the truth? We have literally lost our mind. Literally, he wrote this, he acknowledged in 5 months over the summer of 2020, and the world was losing its mind. So, recapturing the rapture, uh, so it's like what he's trying to do is get a grand scale of not just the history throughout time of the scriptures and the texts, but actually how science has now and philosophy has now caught up with what the scriptures were trying to say, and how we kind of need to re-scripture, bring a 2.0 to the way that we think about the world, to the way that we think about our own mortality and our own achievement of spirituality without going over the deep end. And that's exactly what he is talking about. He actually calls it out, like those culty people who uh, commit to spirituality, but then they forget that they're in a body on a planet. Like, they're so committed to changing their names and, the smoking, 'cause they're smudging everywhere they go. They're committing to, like, this transcendent experience, but then, like, tuning in and dropping out and not actually living the in this world. And so what he's saying is he's giving us, like, this instructions manual, and choose to accept it or not, about how to integrate our own spiritual lives, our own uh, metaphysical lives with the physical, on the physical plane, because it's actually what you do in a body on a planet that actually matters. The rest of it is superfluous. It's just gravy. It's the icing on the cake. When you actually think about what it is that the Gnostic Gospels, what it is that the philosophers and the mystics and the poets and the Sufi, Sufi poets and the whirling dervishes and Buddha and Lao Tzu and everyone along the way was trying to say, was actually how you it doesn't matter what you know, if it's all remains here or if it's all for your own transcending experience, transcendental experience. If you're not coming back down and helping others, bringing others into the fray, into the, you know, community of it, then what's it really for? I mean, it's really easy to go up to the cave and have enlightenment when you're surrounded by nobody and nature and birdsong and stars. It's a very different thing if you come back down into the world and suddenly find that the experience of bills and screaming kids and viruses and the world around and then the fray and the noise, if that makes you flip your lid and you no longer can hold that transcendent space, like how does it actually look to actually recapture the rapture of your own life when you're actually faced with those things that normally have you go off the rails? That's what this recapture the rapture is all about. And he positions it, I mean, he really says rethinking God, sex, and death. And that's really, he positions this book from not only a religious, spiritual perspective, but really how to rethink everything that we think about God, sex, and death. Now, there are a lot of books that I've read along the way that have talked about Tantra or spirituality or that God essence of rethinking, that what do we know? What do we know about the, omnipresent, omniconscious God above? And yet I chose to today not necessarily capture this with those kinds of books. This Recapture the Rapture by Jamie Wheal is actually has earned its spot in a very different part of my bookshelves. It has earned its spot s- steadily in the center of two other philosophical thinkers, current day philosophical thinkers. I really looked at it and thought, do I put this in my shelf that has philosophers, old world philosophers, some of them still alive, but most of them passed on already. Do I place this in sort of that thinkers, the words of wisdom, or do I place it in the what may be considered, radical maverick thinkers that are current day? Some people would even put them as fringe elements or alt elements of writers that are writing against the grain today, mavericks, tree shakers, like the rebels, the mystics, the ones that are calling things out in real day to day. And I actually decided that this book on the Richter scale gets placed in between Graham Hancock's finger, Fingerprints of the Gods and David Wilcock's The Synchronicity Key. The reason is that um, while Fingerprints of the Gods looks at the Earth's lost civilizations or the ancient civilizations, it also primarily looks at how we honored spirituality, why it is that we prayed towards certain icons or certain deities throughout time, and really kind of weaves a narrative of secret societies or of things that people would know that would pass on in a way that they didn't want the masses to know. So that really hints at Gnostic understanding or the Gnostic gospels and the hidden truth. And so, in comparison, Recapture the Rapture does take a huge look at that. But here's why it earned its place on the shelf by Graham Hancock is that after the success of the Fingerprints of the Gods and this search for the lost knowledge throughout the world, Graham Hancock also was came out staunchly and steadily. He was the one of the only people whose TEDx talks has ever been um, banned on the TED platform. You could still find it, but you need to look for it because he came out actually with the secrets of taking psychedelics to enhance your spiritual understanding and the benefit of psychedelics in your growth and transcendent experiences. And that's actually a big part of what Recapture the Rapture is all about. I mean, the two books were written uh, decades apart. And of course, Graham Hancock kind of opened the doors for what Jamie Wheal is able to do now, which is take people on these transcendent experiences with the promotion of psychedelics, uh, being, both the natural kind that are harvested from the ground from people who know, and also like the kind that have been promoted in a and created in a factory or created in a pharmacy or in a lab. So that's why it earned its place. This earned its place with Graham Hancock and then the David Wilcox, uh, because it's such a scientifically corroborated book. So it's science and spirit have finally caught up to each other. So in the synchronicity key, what he's looking to do is actually create an intelligence that's guiding the universe, create an actual system codified field of investigations. And these two become then synonymous with each other because that's actually what this book, Recapture the Rapture, is trying to do. Is it's actually taking he's taken in a lot of studies from, let's say, anthropology, the study of sexuality, the study of biochemistry, the study of neurology, brought in the medical field into this protocol that he gives. And he actually calls it, in Recapture the Rapture, he actually calls it, I'm just flipping to the page, the sexual yoga of becoming study. He actually gives an appendix at the back where he uh, does actually explain this he calls it the power of stacking. So taking certain protocols that he's put together, that he's considered that this is the ultimate way to actually get transcendent experiences, ecstatic experiences, and he adds this study. It was a 3-month long study that he gave to a variety of different couples, both heterosexual and homosexual, both in monogamous relationships and in polyamorous relationships, and gave them this protocol and had them self-assess based on these both breath work, as well as psychedelic work, as well as sexual work, um, and a few other things within the protocol, gave them a protocol for this to take on for 3 months. And in that study, he actually studied their perceptions on it, the implications that it had on their own lives. And I really love when spirituality meets science. When when someone who comes and actually talks about how we can attain transcendent ecstatic experiences and actually says, I actually did the science behind it. I'm actually proving that there were real humans behind this wisdom that I'm sharing. I love when authors actually take the time to not just theorize, but actually put experience into their theories. And beyond that, not just their own personal experience, though that counts for a lot. Not going to deny that, not going to, so put that as second fiddle. Personal experience counts for a lot. But personal experience could be an outlier, could be, you know, that it works for you, but it won't work for anyone else. As soon as you've allowed other people to test your theories, it becomes scientifically, it goes under scientific scrutiny. You're then allowing people to come back and give you feedback if your theories are correct beyond you. And that takes a certain level of lack of ego, an allowance to go outside of yourself and have people possibly critique, condemn, criticize. I mean, uh, talk about talking the talk and walking the walk. Because if you actually are so sure that this is the key, the scientific key to transcendent experience, then you don't mind sharing it with other people. And in fact, you'll even transparently share it in your book, what other people have experienced, the good, the bad, and I won't say there's ugly, but there's possibly pretty scary for some people to experience. So that's why Recapture the Rapture has earned its place on the Richter scale as a book that is an access point for a philosophical exploration into spirituality. It's not a spiritual book, it's a cross between philosophy, science, and allowing you to understand your own spiritual experience through that integration. Recapture the Rapture by Jamie Wheel on today's Richter scale, on this Richter report. Until next time, right on. See you soon.